Greetings, my lovely viewers. Brian here. I want to come to you for this video to both brag about and talk you through my brand new peer-reviewed article in the Journal of Religion and Popular Culture, April 2025, which is when I'm making this, actually in early May 2025. You can read it. It is full view online, at least at the time I'm making this video. And instead of linking lots of sources and images and other things that I'm going to be referring to, I'm just going to link the paper down below, both at the Journal of Religion and Popular Culture and also at my Academia.edu site. You can check it out. There are links there. The paper is called, and I offer this for your listening pleasure, reading pleasure, Shocking Discoveries of Giants You Will Not Believe, with 3 exclamation points. Conspiracy Belief and Archaeological Interest in YouTube Videos About Biblical and Other Giants. I got that first part of the title, Shocking Discoveries of Giants You Will Not Believe. I think I stole it or maybe amended it just slightly from the title of a YouTube video itself, because I thought it was just a funny, eye-catching kind of title, but it also kind of has an ironic twist, the idea of these are videos about, these are shocking discoveries you will not believe. I think that, the purpose would be to say, like, you can hardly believe this is true, but it is true. But the statement, you will not believe these, is, I think, also like part of the joke there too. Like, you look at a lot of these videos and you might say, who would possibly believe this? What am I talking about? How did I get interested in this? Well, as some of you know, I did write my doctoral dissertation at Harvard University on biblical giants, on Genesis 6:1-4, and on a constellation of related passages. I had a take on it, which was very literary and historical in nature. And I think it was a different kind of take, a unique take and an original one, which was published in my book, right here, which I just happen to have, The Last of the Rephaim. It's like under $20 from Harvard University Press if you want to get it. And so you can check it out that way. But so that's how I kind of first got into this. I stumbled on the topic. Maybe I'll do a different video about how I even got into that topic. But for now, I'll just say I've maintained this interest. I haven't written more books on biblical giants yet, but I have done articles and book chapters and other kinds of things like that. And this is the most recent thing that I've done. So that's kind of the origin of my academic interest. But the way I got interested in this conspiracy topic is because, well, that's a long story. But one of many sources of interest for me are YouTube videos, which have kind of like spooky, mystical music playing while some narrative voice walks you through supposed archaeological discoveries of the bones of giants, which might be biblical giants or there might be others. And you might have seen pictures like this or images like this. See that? See the giant head? See the guy? You can clearly see this is a giant because you can see how big he is and scale. I don't know why it says 7 feet up there. That's much more than 7 feet. The skull is like 7 feet. The skull is more than 7 feet. Okay. You might say, Brian, this is not a topic of scholarly interest. Okay. People are just stupid. That's obviously photoshopped. Like, come on. Okay. But I don't think, as I'll go on to argue here in this very brief summary of the paper, and I'll stop saying it, but I'll just say it one more time. If you want the full thing, you got to read the paper. So I don't have every detail just here to regale you with. But I think there's something better. I think there's more to say, and I think there's something better to say than to simply say, well, people are dumb and gullible, and people have always been dumb and gullible, and that's just the end of it. No, I think from a social scientific point of view, from an academic point of view, for someone who's interested in biblical studies and interpretation, for someone who's interested in religion and belief and why people believe what they believe, you got to ask why about 5, 6, 7, 10 times in a row deeper. And then, yes, maybe you come back to very simple, blunt, straightforward answers. But you've taken a journey and you understand more than you did before. And so that's my heart intention here, is to watch videos like this. Or watch videos like this. Here's another screenshot that I discuss in the article, in which you have a giant walking down a street. There's a video called Giant of Japan Military Parade. I think it's still up on YouTube. And you can see the link in the paper. Which is actually a clip from a mockumentary called Big Man Japan, a 2007 film, which I have seen in full. It's a delightful film, actually. It's humorous. It's very strange. It has an odd ending. But like, we know, you watch the video and people are like, wow, this is like lost footage from the 1920s from a military parade in Japan, and this is unbelievable. And so you can see that the Nephilim in the Bible are real. And people are in the comments pointing out, like, look, like we know for a fact this is a clip from a movie. It's a CGI computer generated thing from a film called Big Man Japan. Here's a link to the film. You can even see the preview for the film. You can see this clip in the preview for the film, which is available online. And yet, beneath those comments and intermixed with them are people saying, no, that's a lie. This is actually real footage, and without really any compelling reasons, but just so like that willingness and that tenacity to believe that this clip, which was actually from a fictional mockumentary, a film, Big Man Japan, is actually archival footage of this giant in black and white walking down a Japanese street. Just that willingness to believe, I'm like, yeah, it just really struck me. So from the interest in biblical giants and all of the academic and historical and linguistic and thematic and literary questions there, all the way zooming ahead thousands of years to our contemporary world, why are people so engaged with this? Why are people so into this? I think there's a story to tell about why people are so engaged in this that I was not able to address in the paper. You can't do everything in a paper like this. You can see that the paper itself is already pretty long. More work needs to be done, and I would like to be one of the people who does it for sure, to try to understand why certain kinds of people today are really into Nephilim, what I'll call Nephilim spiritualities. I presented on this at the Society of Biblical Literature and the American Academy of Religion meeting in, I think, 2022, which is when I started this paper. And it just came out now. It shows you how long an academic process takes, right? Things move very fast on YouTube. Videos rise and fall and ideas and so on. Blog posts, podcasts. But the academic publishing process, very slow. So it puts us at a disadvantage, right? Because like I'm talking about materials that were, that had certain kinds of comments beneath them and so on, like at that time, but it's kind of like a freeze frame. But now here we are. Okay. But anyway, I'll call these Nephilim spiritualities. Why are people into these Nephilim spiritualities? They seem to be on the rise. I mean, I think people have always been into demonology and angels and these divine worlds. There's no question about that. You can find evidence of that from every period of human history and certainly from Christian history. But what is it about the particular emphasis on this now? Many of the best-selling books in the Amazon categories of like mysticism and biblical studies are about the Nephilim, are about Nephilim and what I call Nephilim spirituality. So like, why? I'm not here. I should also say, and I hope not in the paper, although it's an academic exercise, and so there's a certain tone to it. If you're watching this and you are really into Nephilim spiritualities yourself, I'm not here to criticize you, to make fun of you, or to do any of those things. Although I think some of these videos are transparently funny, and I do think it is. There's something performatively humorous, perhaps you'd agree, about someone taking a clip from Big Man Japan and saying, this is actually archival footage from 1920s Japan. Okay. So I'm not here to mock, I'm not here to disprove, but I'm here to understand. And certainly I bring my own frame of reference with that too. And as a Christian, I probably believe lots of things that certain people would find totally incredible and mockery worthy as well. So count me as one of your friends and allies in all of this, even if I have a different frame of reference and different beliefs from you. Why are people into this? I wish I'd written more about that. I wish I had more time. I think there is something to be said about prepper communities, about right-wing ideology, about ideas about anti-authoritarian or anti-authority or anti-elitist ideas against the establishment, against the medical establishment, against the authorities, against professors. These kinds of ideas, that Nephilim spiritualities actually, they work really well with that because it suggests that you don't need to know all this like book learning and stuff. What you need to know is like spiritual discernment about what's happening in these like arcane heavenly realms. And I think there's something to be said there. I haven't got it all worked out yet. You can let me know in the comments what you think. I know somebody had made a comment to an earlier video I'd made about Genesis 6 and Nephilim to the effect that why are people interested in this? Maybe it's just like we live in a world which seems to be dominated by powers of some kind, wealthy billionaires and tech influencers and people behind the scenes who are doing these kinds of things. And the Nephilim spiritualities actually also lend themselves well to that kind of thinking because it presents a kind of world behind the world. Maybe this was the appeal of why so many people got into this very minor biblical sub-theme of the divine council, this idea that there would be some group of angelic or spiritual beings around God in God's throne room, and these things are influencing world events and things like that. maybe the idea is that's an analogy for how the world really, really works at some kind of level, like a spiritual level and even like a literal level. Like you have humans making decisions behind the scenes, insurance companies, with the murder of the medical insurance CEO, or the killing, or however you think about what happened in that well publicized event where the health insurance CEO was shot on the street and it was on video. The idea that there are these people behind the scenes who are deciding life and death. And, there's a kind of like spiritual analogy to that. If you have like demons and angels kind of duking it out and doing battles, then you have like human versions of those things duking it out and doing battles. And then you have like us down here below. So you have this tiered universe. And I think that these views make sense. There's a lot to be said there. Here's my argument in the paper. Many people, when they think about conspiracy theory, and I do think these videos of giants and of the excavations of giant corpses and conspiracies about the Smithsonian Institution suppressing the discovery of giant bones, I think these can just descriptively be called conspiracy theories. Whether or not they're historically accurate, there's a genre of conspiracy that I think these fit into really well. And a lot of the discourse, a lot of the social science discourse and the psychological discourse and the religious studies discourse for that matter about conspiracy has been very, you could say like it's been very negatively oriented. And here I'll read from my paper a little bit. These negative explanations tend to dominate. Conspiratorial thinkers are, quote, losers who seek narrative control over a world they cannot otherwise achieve. And I cite studies. As one Dutch scholar, Van Pruijsen, I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing his name correctly, you can see it in the paper, as his research team has pointed out recently in some literature I really liked. In the professional literature, conspiracy belief is most often associated with out of control and anxious emotions. Feelings of anxiety, uncontrollability, and uncertainty necessarily always are aversive and need to be managed psychologically. That's a quote from the article. Against this trend, however, and with this YouTube content in mind that I've reviewed for this paper, we might explore with Van Pruijsen's research project alternative motivations that describe why conspiracy belief persists despite the negative health and social effects that are often associated with them. Namely, conspiracy content is positively stimulating. It provides an emotionally intense experience. And it is straightforwardly, in some cases, depending on your frame of reference, it is straightforwardly it's entertaining. So simply put, this research suggests that individuals consistently experience conspiracy explanations for an event as more entertaining and emotionally stimulating than non-conspiracy accounts for the same event. I also cite other and dialogue with other scholars who have pointed out the particular aesthetics of conspiracy video around other conspiracy events. Not a lot of people have studied YouTube as a medium, as a genre for religious expression, but I think it's high time that people did. We're starting to see a few things blossom up, and I cite some of this literature. I mean, YouTube is the dominant video space, and so many people use it. I mean, it's I wouldn't be surprised if Google is accused of having various kinds of monopolies, including over the video space, because there really is no competitor with YouTube, right? It just is so dominant. And so I think it's worthwhile to look at things like YouTube comments. I think it's worth looking at Amazon review comments. I cite sources, primary sources of average everyday people and consumers of these theories as primary sources for research in the paper, which I think makes a lot more sense in the subfield of religion and popular culture. A lot of like highbrow scholars in my field, including some of my colleagues who are in my academic writing and encouragement group, they looked at me as I was writing this like, what are you doing, bro? Like, you're quoting people's comments from YouTube videos? Yes, I am. I quote in the paper many comments from YouTube videos to give some sense of the flavor and the type of belief that's associated with these things. But one researcher I really liked, he pointed out that the aesthetics of conspiracy video often, I don't know, he uses words like spinning. There's a kind of spinning effect. Like, you got to keep the plate spinning. So it's like raising these questions that kind of have no answers and having a sort of engagement that just kind of keeps you looped around it. And this researcher's name was Sukup. Again, I don't know these people, so I don't know how to pronounce their names sometimes, okay? Sukup, 2008 article. He noticed the way that content provided, quote, a unique sense of pleasure for media consumers, with unanswered questions driving the narrative within a form of play. Citing work by Lindemann and Renegar, Sukup suggests that such theories do offer resistance on loaded topics, but do so with a pleasurable resistance. So in other words, the conspiracy offers a pleasurable resistance to authority narratives about an event, empowering the consumer's complex interpretations of media texts. I use this type of interpretation to analyze the reaction to a book about Nephilim. It's by a woman, a rare female voice in the space of Nephilim spiritualities and conspiracy theory, namely Jennifer Sanger. A book called, I think it's called something like The Nephilim and the Federal Reserve. In short, she proposes that Nephilim descendant demonic characters created the United States Federal Reserve. The book is shot through with anti-Semitic themes, not just anti-Jewish religion themes, but like racially charged anti-Semitic themes. The book begins with a QAnon quote, very fascinating, showing the way these kinds of communities of Nephilim spiritualities, giant belief, QAnon conspiracy, this can all get, not for everyone obviously, but in some interpretations can get kind of like woven together. And Sanger's book is truly wild. I actually purchased it and I actually read a lot of it. It was tough to read all of it. It's very long and it is not a work of scholarship. I think Miss Sanger wants it to be a work of scholarship, but has many reviews. I mean, it's a popular book. It's more popular than any of my books. I'll tell you that. But I wanted to cite, in light of this reaction or this reception to this kind of literature, the kind of spinning, the conspiratorial spinning effect. I cite an Amazon review. And you can, I cite where it is and I cite the name of the person. But let me read this Amazon review to show you this effect. She, meaning Sanger's book, makes you see the Bible in a whole new way. I went through and highlighted things that really had my head spinning. She uses the word spinning in the review. And when I finished reading it, I gave it to my mom to read. If you're looking for a book to help you understand things you've read in the Bible in a whole new way, buy this book. I honestly didn't care about the links to the Federal Reserve once I started reading, which is weird because I know that's what the book was about, but everything else she goes into detail on is so stinking interesting. I just got sort of absorbed in each chapter and topic and forgot what the overall purpose of the book was. Anyway, buy this book. I love this review. Thank you for writing that Amazon review. It's not a review I would have written of Sanger's book, The Nephilim and the Federal Reserve, but it highlighted from an actual user, from a religious adherence, and I presume a religious adherence perspective, some of the themes that I explore and argue for in the paper as legitimate, relevant, and productive themes for interpreting the reaction to giants conspiracies on YouTube and in other media. Namely, this idea of the spinning effect, that there's an aesthetic kind of appeal to conspiracy material that kind of keeps your head spinning, and it doesn't even matter what the main argument is, she says. She says it right out. I forgot what the book was about. It was just like all these little details, and so it appeals to a certain way of thinking, which has lots of topics. You picture like like in a movie or a TV show, a conspiracy wall with pictures and yarn going between the things and so on. And yeah, it's that kind of idea and the kind of intellectual and even spiritual process that's attracted to that. But also, there's also, and I guess I'll close with this. I could say so much more. I guess I just wanted to offer this as an advertisement for you to read my paper. I'd welcome any feedback you have in the comments down below. I don't promise I won't use your comments in further research about the way people think about conspiracy theories, okay? But she brought up one other theme that I do want to mention about what this new engagement with conspiracy theory and Nephilim spiritualities and giant, what it all means. Why is this happening now? I think it's no secret that we've experienced throughout the middle and late 20th century a pretty grand disenchantment with religion. I mean, lots of people have done lots of well-known research about the numbers of people who have left church and the way it's just become difficult to, read the Bible in a childlike way, and just believe in the way that people maybe we imagine in a pre-modern period used to just believe. And I think in a way, these kind of conspiracies, Nephilim theologies, this kind of spiritual engagement with giants and demons is a way of re-enchanting the Bible. And the reviewer brings that up, if you're looking to understand the Bible in a whole new way, we're kind of bored with the Bible. There's a certain kind of Bible boredom out there. A boredom with close reading, a boredom with just reading the text and understanding basic things. And of course, we do some of that here on this channel because I don't think it's boring. I think it's great. And I know some of you like it too. But I think maybe you know what I mean when I say there's a kind of boredom with the Bible. There's a sense that we need some new study with the Bible. I've noticed even on my own channel here, of course, and this is also part of the appeal of this stuff and why it's taken on a momentum of its own, these giants' conspiracies. If I title a video something very provocative and even playfully a little bit clickbait oriented, you know, archaeologists have destroyed belief, question mark, question mark, question mark, those videos will invariably get a couple of thousand views, whereas if I title a video something like, hey, join me in this close reading of Ezekiel 37, I get like 200 views on that. Even if I have like really explosively interesting things to say about Ezekiel 37 or whatever topic, okay? I'm not saying that I do, but you get my point here, right? One chess YouTuber I follow, Levi Rosman, he's the biggest chess YouTuber, Gotham Chess. He's pointed this out, like people will heckle him for clickbaiting on his videos. And he said in his videos, he's like, look guys, this is my job. I make my living this way. And when I do explosive clickbait titles, I get like double or triple the engagement. It's just the way it is. You got to love it and you got to roll with it, you know? And so I think because that's true, conspiracy content that lures the viewer into very black and white, apocalyptic kind of theologies, mysterious, discover how demons and Nephilim are all around you in the world today, it just performs better on the algorithm of TikTok, of YouTube, of social media, of blogs, of search. And so because of that, it's a kind of phenomenon that I think feeds on itself too. And that's something I could have explored a little bit better in the paper. But this idea that we want to re-enchant the Bible, that the Bible is important, that it's like this culturally meaningful thing that has to somehow be, we have to like electroshock it or like bring it back to life. Otherwise it's just like too boring, you know, for us because we're used to like stimulation. I think that's part of this story as well, that effect. All right, I've just been blathering here in all kinds of directions, so I leave it to you. Give the paper a look if you can. But basically my thesis is YouTube is very popular. These giants and Nephilim spiritualities are a kind of newly ascendant thing that I think a lot of people in the scholarly community maybe haven't even noticed just how popular they've become, even in church circles and among QAnon adherents. I know that's kind of like a little bit over with now and has taken some new form, but these things are very, very popular. And I think scholars and academics like myself have often missed the boat on that. And then finally, I want to suggest, how should we think about this? Yes, I know that there are psychological frames for thinking about conspiracy, which focus on science illiteracy and ignorance and loneliness and a lack of power. And I think those frames are probably also true in some ways too. I want to point out that there are other frames though too. Some that are just, I don't know if they're positive, they're just not so like loser and negativity oriented, but rather oriented toward our need for stimulation, our need for entertainment, and even our need, presumably an ongoing spiritual need for Christians to re-enchant Scripture in a new way.